In a world that can be challenging, and at times unpredictable, it's hard to find moments to focus on what you need. Join Stephanie James on The Spark as she guides you to use your inner flame to ignite your best life. As a best-selling author, psychotherapist, transformational life coach, and international show host, Stephanie is dedicated to helping you create a life that takes you, your goals, and your passions to the next level, so you can live a life that is fully lit up and fully alive. She believes that your life is meant to be a beautiful expression of the things that light you up. That by living your dreams, you give permission to others to do the same. Are you ready to feel alive and inspired to fuel your dreams and put a fire behind your desires? Let's ignite a spark in one another that will illuminate the world. The Spark, with your host, Stephanie James, starts now.
Welcome to The Spark. I'm your host, Stephanie James. So excited to have you here with me tonight. You know, I want to tell you first, before we get started, about a special event that's coming up, and it's November 6th. I'm going to be doing the Igniting Your Best Life free event. It's 2 hours. That's a Saturday, November 6th from 10 to noon. And we're really going to be helping you move towards breaking through limiting beliefs and really creating that abundant mindset in your life and looking at the places where you can really transform and take your life to the next level. So this is going to be a free event. You can register at stephaniejames.world/ignite-your life. So excited to see you there. I'm here tonight with the amazing Curtrice Goddard. And she is a dynamic, amazing, transformational coach and teacher. Have loved my conversations with this woman. She's just a powerhouse in the world and a force for so much good. Really honored to have you here tonight, Curtrice.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, thank you. I know you're working always on so many amazing things. And from the What We Need to Know Now event, we began a conversation with what was really stirring some passion in you right now. And so I'm hoping that we can continue that conversation here.
Yes. Thank you so much for wanting to dive deeper and sit in the conversation and expand it. It's just so powerful when we come into community and start to share ideas. So something really close to my heart and what's really been lighting me up in my platform Up Now is talking about bringing consciousness to the social justice and social transformation conversation. I'm so passionate about it, and I feel like it's such a deep truth that there's not really any other conversation that I want to have. So that's how you know you are in alignment. I'm like, what are we talking about if we're not talking about the conscious shifts that need to happen in order to resolve a lot of things that's happened in this world in these times, in this age where we are so much more enlightened than we've ever been, and we have the information and tools to really connect with one another. So yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, yes. Well, and so what particular part of that conversation is speaking to you and wants to speak through you tonight?
Yes, well, wonderful. The big piece for me, and something I've been meditating with over the last couple of weeks, is bringing in the element of consciousness when you are talking about and approaching racism, injustice, social transformation on the planet. The place where we get to step away from these human avatars and go into higher consciousness, and then start to talk about the things that are impacting us, that's impacting the world, and how we can create solutions to move forward. Right now is a very logical conversation, very much of the primal mind. It's where it has always been. You said, you did, they did, history says this will happen. And so where is that higher consciousness and how this conversation is wanting to show up in our world to catalyze change? So it is of my belief that anyone, and I say this really to Black and white people, because I feel like we live here now, but we all kind of woke up like, I wasn't here when all that was happening. Like, wait a minute, right? Like we all feel like, what have we inherited and what level of sacred responsibility do we have to it, right? If you are of the Black and white lineage, hello, you have inherited some level of sacred responsibility to not necessarily go out into the streets, but to at least do some level of self inventory and look at where you feel triggered by it, where you feel mad, where you feel sad, where you feel guilty, where you don't feel anything, and just look at that as one of the tools in your toolbox for you to start to heal and become a more impeccable, enlightened being. Because that's why I feel we're here on earth, all of us. So that's how I'm looking at it. Like my the conversations right now, when I do give like different talks, the people that are showing up are people who are getting that this is part of my soul's journey. I want to take the things that are unconscious on this earth, the things that people are averting their eyes to, and open my heart, let it blast my heart wide open. So it's been really beautiful.
Well, and I'm really hearing that piece of, none of us are exempt from this conversation. You know,
People try to be though, right?
yeah, people try to be. And when I hear that, because I think, and part of it, I really, my heart really goes out because I think a lot of people, they don't want to say the wrong thing.
Yeah.
They don't want to enter into this conversation and make anyone feel less than or awkward or,
Mhm.
so there's already this kind of anxiety component built in around these conversations. And so, truly, the importance of opening and dropping into our hearts and maybe reaffirming to ourselves that, hey, I'm safe in this conversation.
Yes. Oh, I love that. I'm safe in these conversations. And even when you said that, like it is my intention, but I am one woman, right? To hold safe spaces for these deep dives. And when you said that, that's the conscious piece is when you move out of the Stephanie avatar, the human space, who you are, where you've been, what your resume say, and come into that higher consciousness, there's no fear there, right? You seeing others as you. There's no missteps in words. There's no right way to be. It's just you are me, and I can be and show up raw in every moment. So it's really important because, like you said, without the higher consciousness piece, us really disconnecting and like moving out and of like going into that observer space and knowing that we are one humanity, knowing yourself as source in a body and connecting to the world and the people within it in that way, you will always be in the primal mind again, with all the fear and all the anxiety and all the things. And I just want to interject also, like you said, a lot of people feel anxiety, but there's a lot of Black people who don't want to have the conversation either. They just don't want to act like it. This never happened. My life is fine. I don't want to, right? And so that's why, and I'm not saying anyone should. If it is something that you feel called to, definitely. It's my belief that it's a sacred responsibility, but I'm not definitely not projecting that. But I see it as because it's something that people run from. My life, my long journey of coaching people, I know that's something you should look at. As soon as you want something to go away, that warrior, spiritual warrior within you should say, no, let me look at this. Let me get this medicine, right? Because we're powerful and we're here to transmute it. We are here to transmute this energy. That's what I solely believe. Just as we want to clean up the oceans, there's another unconscious energy here upon our earth. People are acting out in that energy. How can we be the light and be the light in our raw truth? Right? I don't want to hide about it. I get really fired up over that. Like anything, let's turn on all the lights, right? We're strong enough to do that.
Well, and another beautiful piece that I heard you say is this
Mhm.
thing is I am that. We are a part of each other.
Yeah.
And one of the things that has always, since I learned this, maybe 15 years ago when I was learning about, quantum physics and the fact that when you and I, even here, even though
Mhm.
we're in different locations, when we are meeting as one, we are exchanging subatomic particles, so we literally are becoming a part of one another. And
Yes.
when we can drop into that place, I mean, it's so yes, it's on a quantum level and it's
Mhm.
also at a heart level.
At a heart
When we
level.
can get to that place in our humanity, wow, we can open up these conversations because we are
Yeah.
connected at our hearts and we are one in our hearts.
Yes, yes, beautiful. That's so beautiful, Stephanie. And I feel like that's what the invitation is. So I see conversations about racism as an invitation. I had a friend tell me, I just can't imagine you doing this work. I mean, you're just always so happy. And I was like, right, like she's like, this doesn't resonate for me. And I'm like, but I don't have those triggers. I see the power in the medicine and the invitations to create something really beautiful. I feel like that's why I'm on the earth. Like, this is what I've come for. It could have shown up in any other way as well, but this is why I've been doing the work I've been doing all these years. It's for the time that is nigh, right? It's no, this isn't my time to hide. This is my time to shine. This is my time to share. And I feel anyone on that spiritual journey, this is our time to like really hold beautiful and potent space on the planet. For all anything that is unconscious, may we bring consciousness and light to that.
Well,
Yeah.
and that's one of the beautiful parts about you. And you know, I'll never forget. It's one of my favorite lines that I still use during our first interview, which was just about a year ago right now.
Wow.
And that interview was called "Bring the Joy" because I'm telling you, the joy was palpable. And
Yeah.
you came on and you said, "Consciousness is my jam."
Yes.
And I love that.
I
And
know.
it's so true about you. And I think an important piece that I'm hearing you say right now is we can still be in our joy and have these
Yeah,
conversations.
that's the transformation. That's the transcendence, sister. That's the transcendence. Because without that, what are you? You're in a victim. You're in the fear. You're in someone else's projecting. Like, you have to come through with the light, right? We get to be the light even in the hard conversations. That's the work I do, right? Like, I'm not, I'm understanding that there's a powerful invitation. That's just what spirit keeps saying to me. Like, there is an invitation for so much change and love within that. And I know even in my personal life, which is why I'm building my platform in this way, that I have my community. There's a lot of white people in my community, or people who happen to be white. It gets all confusing, right? So with that, and this is my life. And in those spaces, I never change how I speak or what's happening or in our personal space. This is dinner time for us, but I'm around a lot of world changers, change makers, right? Conscious trailblazers, and they want to have these conversations. And so I thought about that. I'm like, how can I open up what our dinner table looks like on a Wednesday when we're all up in Ojai and cooking together, and just have this as a global platform for us to all be together? And what sometimes does is not always roses, but when you are there with people with open consciousness and open hearts, it does create a new reality.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Love that. And
yeah.
so let's talk a little bit about these conversations then.
Yeah.
And some of the content of these conversations. And before we do, I have to say, Solomon Masala, who was also a beautiful Black man, who was part of the What We Need to Know Now event that Gabriella Masala and I hosted in
Mhm,
September. He was talking about these difficult conversations, and
mhm,
one of the ways as we enter into them to start soothing that fight or flight is
mhm,
to literally go over those basic questions of, if we were talking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it would be the basis. So before you enter into the conversation, you might notice that you're nervous or your heart is beating, and you say,
mhm,
okay, am I going to eat tonight? Well, 99% chance you are probably going to eat dinner. Okay, I got food. Do I have a
mhm,
home to go to?
mhm,
99% chance, yes. Does
mhm,
this person that I'm talking to right now have a weapon?
mhm,
99.999% chance this person does not have a weapon. So I don't really have a chance of being murdered here.
mhm. Yeah.
So if I can just ask myself, and it sounds simplistic, but we ask those questions and then it's like, okay, I can take that fight or flight offline and
Mhm.
do exactly what you're talking about. Open my heart, be more present, and be here for this conversation.
Yes. Right. Okay. So yeah, I have something. I know that you'll have a break coming up soon as well. So I just wrote something about Maslow hierarchy of needs. I would love to share that when we return. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we
Okay.
will definitely get to that. I'm sorry for the cutoff here. We've got about 2 minutes, Curtrice.
Okay. Okay. So maybe can I open up into it? You think I
Yeah,
have
let's
time?
open
Okay.
up into it, and then we'll
Beautiful.
we'll we'll circle on back after the break.
Okay. Okay. And so the reason it's interesting, like that you brought that up, because I've been doing like a lot of research on it for myself. And like you said, what the basic need is. And like my whole energy field, my platform is Transcendence Global Institute, like in the transcendent mind, right? Making that a very practical, everyday kind of being for humans, right? For humanity. And for me, the basic needs include self realization. So I would love to copyright that and somehow, like, this is what I consider basic needs, because from where I come from and where I was born, more than just soup and a house and warmth, we in my culture need to know who we truly are when you
Mhm.
come from that level of trauma. And so to me, that self-realization is the basic needs, and it helps to equip me to get my own food and my own soup and my own housing. And so
Beautiful,
that's the game changer.
beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
So more on this with Curtrice Goddard when we return. Welcome back to The Spark. I'm your host, Stephanie James, and I am here with the wonderful Curtrice Goddard. Welcome back, everyone. We are just having such an amazing conversation, and it's hard not to when you're in Curtrice's presence,
Yeah.
which is the truth. You're such a light. And we've been talking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and Curtrice has a not even a bent on it, but really an adaptation, if you will, that is expansive. What will you review that again for the listeners that are just joining us?
Yes, I have chills just thinking about it. That what I propose, the adaptation, is that self-realization is a basic need. You know, we've been operating from the hierarchy of our basic needs being, you know, housing, warmth, food, of course, the essentials for the body to function, but self-realization definitely should be in that piece. So, and I see it in relations to us talking about racism and Black America and healing and all of the social justice conversations, but just in general, when you look out at our world, like what are we missing? That people do not know who they truly are, that people are operating from a disconnected place, right? So from that unconscious place, not knowing that you are God, not knowing who your true self is, then these people are acting from unconsciousness, right? And so far it's been like the spiritual community or the eclectic or, you know, these certain groups. But for me, it's a fundamental need to know who you truly are, to ask those bigger questions. And definitely when it comes to social justice work, and I create a workshop called Justice from Within, and that's a big piece of it, of us coming and to understand who we truly are right now. Well, everything I've seen in my life, all my life, when it comes to my neighborhood, where I grew up in the neighborhood of Detroit, and I grew up in poverty and to a mother on welfare with 3 kids, the blanket statistic. And within that, it's always been a basic need. Here's funding for food and housing and those things, of course, because there's like all these disparities happening here. However, how will these people ever get out of this cycle? How do you ever get up if you don't ever change your consciousness? How? I don't know anything else, right? Because transformation work has healed and expanded my life to such a deep degree. It's the only common, for me, a common sense that anybody who's wanting to heal and change and transform their life and get up in a stable way to create a well life for themselves has to do a level of consciousness work. You have to come to know higher consciousness. You have to know that you are more than your mind and your body, that you are infinite, that you can create whatever, that no matter what the circumstances are, you can create beyond them, right? An empowered being. Disempowered beings are the ones who do not have information and that you are hand feeding soup kitchens. Okay. And that's who we become, to think that this is who we are. And for me, like, I'm waking up into this work and like such a rise comes up. I'm like, no, 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 no. Like, it's the seed of the mind. And it is in the consciousness, it's in the heart that will transform our culture. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Now you're giving me chills. So, yeah. and and so the thing that comes to my mind as you're talking about this is, and it's this question because, for 10 years I worked in the school district in Cheyenne, Wyoming, and for 7 of those for a little school on the south side, which was literally on the wrong side of the tracks, with 73% poverty. And so
Wow.
there was a lot of poverty mentality that went along with that, and these repetitive cycles of how people stayed locked in a certain mentality and difficult to rise above their circumstances.
Mhm.
And so I'm likening this to the same thing that you're talking about when we're talking about, mothers on welfare and, the communities that you're talking about that you grew up in.
Yes. Yeah.
So the question becomes then, how do we start those kind of conversations where people are getting the information so they
Mhm.
can start that heart and mind expansion?
Yes, it is so great talking to you. Like, my wheels are really, really spinning. One thing that just popped up when you said that too, because everything is weaving together, is around the disparities of knowledge, right? Because like the primal mind wants to, you have the wealth, we don't, and there's a resentment in that, right? And so, but when I look out, what I see the hugest disparity is this knowledge, which is why my communities, because of the type of courses and work and tools and resources that I gravitate to on a conscious level, then my community is predominantly white, right? Because there's not a lot of people who look like me who are going to those places. So that's a whole other conversation. But that's the disparity to me. Like, not many people are up like fighting for, I want to have more knowledge of self, right? Protest that is what I want to say. Okay. And then the pieces too, like when you are in communities like where poverty is high, like where I grew up in the hood of Detroit, like it's it's people like myself that comes to create. So right now I have a course that's called The Resilient Mind. And just so happened, all of the ladies that are in this course are from Detroit. And I didn't do that intentionally, but this is really beautiful. And my whole teaching through that and what the end result is for them to be on the road to create a legacy, so that that legacy is feeding back into the community, is feeding their soul, is feeding back into the community, which that level of healing and personal development creates global healing, right? For all of us, right? It becomes a all thing, right? So this is really important. It has to come from us feeding back into those neighborhoods. Like my mom, who is like, I tell her all the time, like, you're my greatest testimony, because she has learned by way of being my mother. We're really close. And she was that young girl on welfare with 3 kids, and we lived with my grandmother my entire life. And now that same woman at 67 years old, like, she has transcended so many statistics where she doesn't take any medicine. Her body is not sick. She doesn't have diabetes. She doesn't have anything in that age group, being on a fixed income in Detroit. She is a vegan, healthy woman that listens to Wayne Dyer, like all these things. She's not always been that way though. She used to fight me. She used to tell me, don't come here from them suburbs talking to me like that, telling me I'm a victim. That's what she said. She said to me, I was like, what did I say to you? I don't even remember that, but I thought that was so funny. But she said, I understand now. My mind, I just couldn't get to what you were saying. She said, but now when I call her, she says things like, oh, you should see what I ate for dinner. I had these organic bell peppers and I made this. And it really just opens and heals my heart to know that my mother is so strong and safe and knows who she is and is living well and has a Berkey filter and taking care of herself. She's taken her own life into her own hands, and she no longer sees herself as in struggle and in strife. So that has shifted how she feels and how she shows up. So for me, that's quality of life. Now, does she have $1 million? She does not. But is she rich? She is. And when you see her, she lights you up. To me, that is the value of really coming into a healed place. And if the community was actually doing that, and those of us who are creating businesses and have the knowledge and are getting out here, then that's going to be the sustainable change, because it will not come from America paying us money or doing things like, you're going to pay money to people who don't know, does not have financial literacy. Okay, do it if that, I see why that's a conversation. I see that because you stole from these people. So yeah, right? It's America needs to come into right relations with everyone, right? If I hit you with my bag in Whole Foods, I'm sorry, right? There's a right relation. There's that act of sacredness. When you hurt someone, you bow down, you make that right. So I expect that of this country. And in the meantime, because of the type of woman I am, I'm not waiting for this country. I'm teaching. And that's where it comes in. So it comes in putting programs where self-realization is a priority. It is a priority. I will no longer allow mainstream to make the things that they call woo-woo and veganism or eating better, or whatever the things that are bullied in the mainstream world as that's for a certain demographic or a certain type of hippie person. And this is the fundamental transformation that humanity requires for sustainable change.
Yes.
Yes.
Love that. Love that. And beautiful story about your mother. I mean, that touches my heart. And I love it. Wayne Dyer is always near and dear to my heart.
Yeah. You know, he's from Detroit too. Did you know that?
No, I did
Yeah, we
not.
call him
I
our cousin.
love
Yeah,
that. I
he's from
love that.
the east side
Yeah.
of Detroit. Yeah.
No, I didn't know that. And, and I love what you're doing with that women's group, and how ironic. I mean, that's just serendipitous and beautiful that they're all from
Yeah.
Detroit as
Yeah.
well.
Yes, Stephanie.
So I mean, I really also hear this piece that you're talking about. It's like, yes, because there has been these wrongs done, that it's giving the fish, if you will,
Mhm.
and what needs to couple that is teaching how to fish as well.
Yes. And what just came in, like, oh gosh, I have chills, is that, and I don't want to be too controversial with this, but when it comes to teaching people how to fish, and when it comes with racism in general, it's so important to understand that it really isn't about white and Black people, right? You can't see Lisa at Walmart, some white woman, and think that person is against you. This is a system. It is a program. It has been intricately put in place. We have all that has grown up with any media been brainwashed over the same messaging about this skin. Everyone, me included, right? We have racism against ourselves, that because the system, we've been their puppets. They have told us what it's like. Most white people don't even know Black people, but they're scared of them, like that message, and they will keep you scared and keep the ones who are doing things to scare you as your avatar, so that you never, don't talk too much, don't come too close, let us not bond, because you might find your soulmate or best friend or something, and then everything will be disrupted. And so when I look at how the world is, and there is this dynamic of the privileged, the unprivileged, the oppressed, the oppressors, it's like I see from a systemic level that the powers that be make a lot of money over having this disparity, over having these people ignorant and uneducated and in this cycle, right? It's the consumers, the zombies, the ones who are not awakened and thinking. And so that's more of a deeper conversation, but it has to be said because my eyes are open, right? And so that's something that I see. I've even I've had this message in my being since 2020, and there's a lot of fear coming up because I'm like, they don't want them to know what I know about who they are. Because in that place, you will love everyone and love yourself.
Mhm.
I'm walking through the world in benevolence. I'm seeing myself in everyone, right? I'm free, go where I want, live where I want, do what I want. And so that's a whole lot of freedom. Now let's multiply that by 4 million people, right? And it changes the very fabric of this country as we have known it, of this global world. So that's a massive shift. And I'm here for it. And I'm stewarding part of that, right? And I just invite anyone who understands and it resonates for them, like, be the light, share the information, teach, give back. And first of all, heal yourself, because that's what my work is. Our personal transformation will create global transformation. It will help the culture live massively, and it will bring in a unified field for us all to inhabit.
Beautiful and right on. And that is exactly, you and I are so aligned in this thought. And that's such a huge message for me as well, that the
Yeah.
healing of this world begins with inside each one of us. And I think that is one of the most empowering statements, because when we have self-actualization around that, then we don't feel overwhelmed that, oh, I can't contribute enough, or I'm not going to enough rallies, or I'm, not speaking out this way. And
Mhm.
instead, it's saying, you don't have to go out here yet.
Yeah.
Start here,
Yeah.
start right in your heart.
Yes.
And as you do that work and allow those parts of you to heal, look at the parts of you, whether you are black or white, look at your own racism. Look
Yeah.
if it's against you or if
Yes.
it's against others,
Because
right?
Stephanie, don't make me drive to your home in Colorado from LA. Yes, that is so. Look at your own racism. You're so right, because I see this with the people who do feel really triggered over the conversation or just even the word when I post and stuff on Facebook. The triggers that come up, I'm like, look at the other places within your life that where you're running as well, right? Because how we do one thing is how we do everything. And it's very hard to look at some of the shadow places, but this is the work that's calling us right now. Like the last years on the planet, I don't know how the message could get any bigger that we need to look within, that we need to do that shadow work and come to love ourselves and have self compassion and start to heal those broken places within ourselves and start to look at what we have been avoiding. Because we are
Yeah.
not victims. We are powerful, infinite beings. And we can look at this, we can heal it.
Well, and that's the beautiful piece of this too that you were talking about a little bit earlier when you're speaking to those women in Detroit and talking about leaving a legacy,
Yes.
and to allow your healing to become the legacy,
Message. Yes.
that
Yes.
you actually are that stone that, I use this analogy a lot, but that stone in the pond, that the concentric circles of healing radiate out from you.
Yes. Yes. It's deeply beautiful. Yes. And it's interesting too, because I feel, with Black America, from my experience, it's just a lot, the hopelessness comes in because people don't know their own internal power, right? No matter where we live, we can make that beautiful. And it doesn't mean that we're accepting the disregard or we're accepting the tragedies that has happened, but we still need to make good with where we are so that we can create something beyond that, instead of the resentment has kept us locked in a
Mhm.
certain cycle and place within this world. And I am ready to see us rise. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. I am so with you. And we rise together.
Yes.
I mean, that's what's so beautiful, that we don't, even if we begin this journey, quote unquote, alone within our own hearts, that
Hmm.
heart is connected to every other heart in this entire world, in this entire humanity,
Yeah.
every living thing. And
Everything.
so it really does, even if it starts within, we're not doing this alone. And as we rise, we help all rise.
Yes. Yes.
So we are going to be back after this next break for more of this just amazing conversation with transformational coach, amazing teacher, Curtrice Goddard. And I can't wait to come back. I can't wait to hear more about these conversations and how they have impacted your life. And one of the things I'm really curious about is hearing the change that these conversations that you have witnessed,
Mhm.
how these conversations have made change in people's life.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Okay, so looking forward to having you all join us. Come on back. And also, just to remind you, for those of you that have just come on, um, there's going to be a wonderful follow up to What We Need to Know Now, the amazing event that happened with 22 different transformational thought leaders, which Curtrice Goddard was one of those. Um, we're going to be having an event November 6th, Igniting Your Best Life event live with me, Stephanie James, your host. And you can find out more about that on stephaniejames.world/ignite your life. We'll be right back. Okay, welcome back to The Spark. I'm your host, Stephanie James. We are here with the amazing Curtrice Goddard, and we are having a lit up conversation as per usual with this woman. And so we're talking about being able to really embody part of what I'm hearing, embody the light that's already within us so we can bring that forward and help illuminate this world. I mean, that's what we're talking about here, and raising our consciousness, raising our awareness, and entering into these conversations that can help one another awaken and grow.
Yeah, yeah.
And so before we went on the break, I was curious to ask you about, what have you seen manifesting? I mean, you are in it. You are doing this work. You are expanding and lighting up in the world. Tell me what you've seen happen through these kind of conversations.
A lot has happened, and mostly, which has been my intention, is that the people that I'm sharing the message with are now moving into being more focused on their internal journey, right? So that level of awakening is coming. And that is really powerful. Like people who, even when I said like this particular course is all women from Detroit, for years, I didn't have anyone from Detroit and not really any Black people at all in my as my clientele for years. I felt very ostracized. That's just part of my story, right? Like I started awakening maybe 15 years ago, living in Detroit, and I was doing things so different than what the culture was around me. I started to feel very like just not included, or right, or not resonating. And that was a huge trauma for me that I've gone through. And as a result, no one was really reaching out. And now it's like every time I look at my phone, I'm like, can you come back home? And I just gave an amazing workshop in August, and all these beautiful humans showed up, and it was really powerful. So just seeing that shift, seeing people who were not open or not interested in any levels of personal development or transformation, or did not understand the power of how that work can actually help them to heal themselves, but actually impact the greater mission for themselves or what they want to see within their communities and cultures and families. That has been groundbreaking for me. This has been my vision. This has been my vision. And 5 years ago, when I wanted to open up a wellness center in Detroit, and I was sharing this with investors, and a lot of them told me that it was too lofty.
Mm.
Yeah, that it wasn't. And I guess when I look back, I'm like, it wasn't time. It wasn't time. The time is now, right? People can hear this. The world is ready. After the last 2 years on this planet, I just feel like everyone is rethinking like the way they move through the world, and what they need and what their values are as well. It's beautiful.
It
Yeah,
is. It
yeah,
is. And I think that that's absolutely the truth, that sometimes it takes these kind of experiences
yeah.
to crack our hearts open.
Yes.
And again, it's something I've said several times on the show, but it's that this happened to all of us
Mhm.
globally, in
Yeah.
this family, our human family, this happened all over the world. And
Mhm.
so I think for the first time we could all say, oh my gosh, I know what that feels like. I know
Yeah.
what it feels like to have someone sick or to lose someone, or
Yeah.
people losing their jobs or all the different things, or we're shut in our house and we feel isolated.
Mhm.
And what's interesting, one of the gifts I think that has come from that I see, at least in my work and my coaching and my private practice, is a different level of understanding and empathy,
Yes. Yeah.
and to be able to hold, and while we're still hearing, I mean, the flip side of the coin is, yes, there's divisiveness. And if you want to focus on the media, I think you can hear a lot of that. And we can choose what is it that we want to focus on,
Mm.
because
Yeah.
what we focus on expands.
Yes. Yes.
So, so
Absolutely.
it's bringing our attention and awareness to, let's start having these conversations where we're willing to crack our hearts open even further.
Oh, now you just read my mind. That piece right there with let's be proactive in our own conscious development. That's what I'm hearing and what I'm also proposing. I think about too, again, the primal mind, or just the logical and way that this world, like our societal conditioning, has been where, especially like in the racism conversation, it's like I have to show you that I'm bleeding in order for you to respond to me, right?
Mhm.
Unless we move into the type of culture where we are benevolent in our being and generous of spirit and looking out for everyone, then we can start to recondition how we dynamically speak to each other when we have needs or things are happening. Right now, it really is someone has to be bleeding in the street for the empathy to arise. And I feel like, and that's what you see the dynamic. It's like this group is steadily over, like, let me show you all this negative stuff, right? Because you're acting like you don't see it. But if we as people are naturally becoming more aware within ourselves and more benevolent, then there'd be more balance, and we wouldn't have to have that type of trigger. And you can again see that on a micro level in families and dynamics where some people are always sick because they want love from their husbands and family. Like I see this just in psychology of humans, and there's something there for us to transcend within. And also when you were saying that, it made me think about the when you were saying doing our own work within ourselves, doing that, with the last 2 years with COVID and everything that's happened. That's just so powerful how it came through as a collective experience. I
Mm.
can't help but believe that it did not come for that reason, but the gift in that is that we do have that collective empathy of really, we've never had anything that brought us to that precipice together. And that is very powerful. Where there was no respect of persons to what happened over the last, 18, 19 months for us. It was just across the board. And it was a deep invitation for empathy and feeling oneness with the global world. And that's powerful, Stephanie.
Well,
As you said it, I'm
absolutely.
like, wow, like it just came, I just seen it through that lens.
Well, and I really resonate too, with what you're saying, that we need to shift the paradigm,
Yeah,
that this thing of, we have to be lying and bleeding in the streets
yeah,
before people wake up, or before they have empathy. And I
yeah.
think that that's been something important to me as well, is that we need to start shifting this paradigm away from, I have to suffer to awaken.
Yes, yes, yeah,
Right. And so we don't have to suffer to awaken. Yes, it can open our hearts. Yes, it can crack us open. And we can also allow ourselves, we can choose to open and to expand. It doesn't have to be being, hit in the heart with a hammer,
no.
so to
Or
speak.
someone, you shouldn't have to help people that, and I just think of a really simple level, like a homeless person, like maybe you think that person, oh, you should help. But for me, I feel like you should help everyone. Like it's the woman in the nice car at the red light that could be suicidal that day. Like when you open up your consciousness to understand like on a level of humanity, everyone, no one is void of human suffering. So to have empathy or sympathy for people that look a certain way or in certain circumstances, opposed to just having that level of heart connection with everyone and being benevolent and sacred and in impeccability as you walk upon the earth. That's the call right now. That is the invitation. That is the invitation for everyone. Once you wake up, you become more conscious of how you are being in the world, how kind you are at the gas station, when you get frustrated with a customer service person, how you respond, like all those little moments is you becoming more impeccable and more heart-centered. And that's the medicine that shifts the paradigm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So beautiful. And it reminds me, and I think I may have said this to you during one of our other conversations. I don't know that this conversation was recorded. Um, and it was that on the film, The Moses Code, Donald Neil Walsh is talking about how he really did this transformative process of mindset. And he would walk down the street, and whether the person was in a limousine or whether it was the beggar, someone on the street, he would look at that person and say, I am that. I am. And that, that powerful line from the Bible,
Yeah.
and being able to take that, and every single human being we look at, we're all in this human condition. We all signed up for this very interesting school called life.
Yeah.
And so it's being with one another as we look at one another, and it doesn't matter social stratus, it doesn't matter rich, poor, black, white, wherever we are. I am that.
Yeah.
I am.
It really does not matter. Like it really, especially like far as having things in common with people, I found in my life that I've found myself in everyone of every race and age and gender, and it is amazing. It is literally amazing. I think about the old Russian guy I met at the opera and how long we talked and how I'm telling him about Jay-Z, the rapper, and one of his quotes. And, it's just, oh, I have chills from that. It's just the beauty and not thinking that we don't have things in common, because if we're human, of course we've both loved and have desired the same thing, have disappointment and triumphs. Like there is no reason where we cannot connect. And I think that's big. And just coming back around to like our initial conversation around social transformation and racism, that's the piece. Even when you were saying when we first came on about being nervous, when you can move out of the space of separation within yourself and understand that this person has desires like me, has been through, has had heartache, has had a victory,
Mm.
has a desire, like, so there is a space for me, even if we do not come from the same place, or we don't have the same social economic status, or whatever that is. That human gets you,
Mhm.
because no one is a void from the human experience. No one. There's not
Yes.
one emotion that you've experienced that I have not.
Well, and Curtrice, I think too, the beautiful piece of that is once we get that, we can start having the more difficult conversations.
Yeah.
We can come to that place where I can hold space for you, knowing we might not agree on this topic,
Mhm.
knowing we might be different political parties, or we might have different views about, let's say just a certain topic in the world. It's okay. We start making room for those conversations. We can have those more difficult conversations when we're in that place of our heart, and we're bringing down that, whether you call it source, divine consciousness, we're
Mhm.
able to hold each other so we can actually be in that space of love, even if what we say feels diametrically opposed. There
Yeah.
doesn't have to be a wrong or right. We can actually have conversations where the goal is connection and understanding, not
Yes.
who's right or wrong.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Yes.
Well, and Curtrice, you have so much here to share. We could keep talking for another hour if the show was longer, but we're just about out of time. I could talk to you forever. How can people get a hold of you and access some of these amazing groups and be a part of this conversation?
Yes, I would love to connect. And at curtricegoddard.com is an easy way to do that. That's my new courses there, as well as there is a box for them to sign up for my mailing list as well and look at all the deeds to anything that's coming up. I do have one workshop in January called Beyond Allyship, and it is a raw circle, like roundtable for women that's having more conversations like you and I are having.
Beautiful.
Yes.
I love that. so thrilled to have you on the show again. You are such a delight. You are a spark in my life. I'm just thankful for you and just so deeply humbled and appreciative of the amazing work you do in the world, Curtrice.
And thank you. Thank you for re-inviting me and sitting deeper into this. I appreciate it just from one soul to the other. I honor you and namaste. Thank you.
Namaste.
Yes.
And thank you, listeners. Thank you for being here with us tonight on The Spark. Big hugs, big love to all of you.
Bye, everyone.
Good night.
Thanks for tuning in to The Spark with Stephanie James. Remember that you already have what you need to live a life that is fully lit and fully alive. You're already holding the flame. Now it's time to ignite your best life. Learn more at stephaniejames.world. That's stephaniejames.world. And tune in next week at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, only on transformationtalkradio.com. Shine on!